You are listening to the Slow Living Podcast, and I'm your host, Stephanie O'Day. What if I told you that you could truly have the life of your dreams, the life you've always wanted, one filled with abundance, joy, and a sense of purpose? It's absolutely possible, and I see it each and every day with my coaching clients. It all starts with learning how to slow down. You deserve to live the life you've always dreamt about. Let's get started. Hi there, Slow Down Society. Steph here, and we are on episode 135 of the Slow Living Podcast. I am thrilled that my friend Amy is here with me today. And this conversation, I want to give you a tiny bit of a warning. We usually keep things very, very rated G on the Slow Living Podcast. But Amy, we might get things a little bit spicy today because Amy is, she's a sexologist. So this is your fair warning. If you've got little ones in the car, if you don't want to listen to this right here, right now, this is your fair warning. There are 134 other episodes you can listen to, and then circle back around when you don't have teeny tiny little baby ears in the car or in the house with you. Okay, that said, Amy's here, Amy Rowan. Amy and I met a few weeks ago in real life at a business summit, and it was fascinating and wonderful, and I loved everything about her. And Amy, take it away. I'm so happy you are here with us.
Thank you so much, Steph. I am so thrilled to be here. Yes, my name is Amy Rowan. I am the Suburban Sexologist. I am a board certified clinical sexologist, sexual health educator, and sex and intimacy coach. So often people ask, why did you start talking about sex?
Yes, I actually did want to know this.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's the first. Everyone's like, "Wow, that is so interesting. How did you start doing that?" And yeah, I honestly feel like I was born to do this. My dad is now retired, but he's an OBGYN and my mom is a psychologist. And I have memories going back to probably middle school of my friends saying, "Hey, Amy, can you ask your dad some question, a question they weren't comfortable asking their parents, a question they weren't comfortable asking their doctors?" And so I started asking my dad all these questions for my friends. And then I also started learning a lot of the answers. And that also just sparked a lot of curiosity for me, just about women's bodies, about how things worked. And then I also think that I have other memories. I would have friends over to spend the night. And, this was back with corded phones on the walls. So my dad would get a beep, a pager, and he would call a patient and he would be talking on the phone. Oh, are you having this type of discharge? These very different conversations. And we're just eating our dinner and my friends are like, whoa. So,
yeah. Yeah, so that's so normalizing like human bodies you grew up with.
Yes, absolutely. I think that was really the start of it because just these conversations, just things were just very normal, talking about women's bodies, about the things that happened. I would obviously spend time after school at my dad's office. And so just the stuff was just very normal and easy for me to talk about and learn about. And so I think that was just really the beginning of it for me.
Yeah, it was interesting because when you and I were talking a few weeks ago, and I know I was talking to you, but then I also was sort of playing up to the audience a little bit, and we were talking about how I have three girls, and in fourth grade in the state of California, it's the kind of puberty ed, and then in fifth grade is sex ed, and my husband, I did all of the pre-talks with the kids, but my husband's like, well, what do you say? How do you start? And I'm like, well, for every single one of them, I started with, so you have three holes. And so I shared that with you. But my husband was like blown away that little girls don't even know that because many don't like literally explore the same way.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I think it's for a little, and I'm also a mom, as you know, and
Yeah.
I have 3 boys.
Yeah.
So I'm coming, same number of children, but coming at it from a slightly different side of things. But little boys from the very beginning, everything is out. Everything is out. I mean, as babies, I'm like, are you going to pull that thing off? They tug on it so hard.
It's like a pull
But
toy. That's really
oh
funny.
my God, like seriously, I'm like, I had no idea that was so stretchy. But they really are. Any boy moms here will totally be, no, I know
That's
they're all
really
nodding their
funny.
head right now. But for little girls, everything is enclosed on the inside, and so a lot of them don't explore or know. Now, also for little girls, everything is fully functional, it, in utero actually, and I think sometimes that is a little bit of a surprise for parents, because a lot of girls self-soothe, because that's really what it is. People think it's sexual behavior at that age. It's not. It's just comforting behavior. But yes, they don't know that they have 3 holes. They don't know what things look like, because most of the time they haven't really gone looking and exploring.
Yeah. So we could have an entire conversation about that and parenting, but today in general we're mostly talking about grown-ups
Mhm.
and what you do for work now, like when you're done when you're done having sex to make babies, and now you're
Yes.
ready to, like, okay, let's focus on me and my needs and wants and desires. So how do you work with your clients in that way? And then I know you have an entire product line and storefront. So I would love for you to share a little bit more on that. It was funny, we were talking about uh like prudeness and getting over that factor. So I wondered if you could talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and yeah, to your point, the parenting conversation, I would love to do another one with you on that. But let's talk about sex and intimacy in long-term relationships. Okay. So I am about to turn 46 years old. I have been married for almost 20 years to my husband. We've been together for 24, 25. I don't know. We've been together for a very long time. And 3 kids, jobs, all of that stuff, all the things that happens in a regular relationship. And with stress, all these things, oftentimes sex just falls to the bottom of the priority list because you're tired. And
Yes.
maybe there's health issues going on, maybe you're not communicating well with your partner, you're stressed. I mean, there's a kabillion different reasons why sex just becomes less of a priority. And sometimes some couples are okay with that, but oftentimes, um, either one person is not okay with it and one person is, or sometimes both partners aren't okay with it, but they're not talking about that at all. And so there's just a lot of resentment that's building. Um, and so what I do, is I work one-on-one, providing talk-based coaching, with primarily with women and couples. I also have some group workshops. I have online workshops and education that I provide. But really, what I do is I just help. Let's just say I'm working with a woman. I really help
Yeah.
with a woman look at, what exactly is going on here.
Yeah.
Um, and oftentimes one of the biggest things that I see is that, the biggest thing I hear, I'm stuck in my head, right? Like
Yeah.
my, you know, I get in bed, I want to do this, or I want, maybe it might even be that far out.
Yeah.
Um, but I get there and I'm so worried about all the things that are going on. I'm
Yeah.
frustrated about XYZ.
Hmm.
And it's taking my body so long, and I'm just like, whatever, honey, like, this isn't going to happen for me tonight. You just
Yeah.
get yours, whatever, and I'm just going to take one for the team and go to sleep. I just want to
Yeah.
get it over with.
Yeah.
And that's what
So,
happens.
yeah. So from your point of view, is it like a self-esteem thing of not being like connected to your brain and your body with self-esteem, or is it just like sheer exhaustion and stress, and this is like just another chore I have to do?
I think there's many layers. Um, but I think one of the two biggest things that I think come up are first, desire, right? And so people are like, oh gosh, when we first started dating, we wanted each other all the time. We were, it was spontaneous. We were climbing all over each other. So how can we not get back to that? What's wrong with that? Um, and actually, this is a place where I push back a little bit and I say, you know what? I'm going to challenge that belief that sex was spontaneous, because let's rewind 20 years. Your date, boyfriend, whatever, he called you up on the phone.
Mm.
You made a plan for Wednesday night or Saturday night or whatever. And then you shaved, you showered, you put on a cute outfit. Your partner was doing the same. You invited your friend over, you borrowed a dress, all of that stuff. And so by the time, and you had days of
Mm.
anticipation of looking forward to that time with that person. So that wasn't spontaneous at all.
Yeah.
um, and so that's sort of the first thing that I like to point out. And then when people are like, okay, well, so it's not spontaneous, but now it's like 9 o'clock and I'm just tired. I'm
Yeah.
just exhausted. So what do I do now? How do I get in the mood there? Um, and that's when I talk about, there's two different types of desire, or two different types of arousal: spontaneous and responsive. And this was made very popular by, or written about by, Dr. Emily Nagoski in Come As You Are. And I highly recommend that book to every single person. Um, but spontaneous desire is the traditional view of desire, where it's that wanting, it's that horniness, it's that, you know, your partner walks across and you see that cute butt and you're like, okay, let's go, and that's what people think of as desire. Responsive desire, if you're a responsive desire person, you need to feel aroused before you feel desire. And that is where most women fall. Though people flip back and forth. It's certainly not static. And so an example of that would be, let's say you're sitting on the couch watching a movie, with your
Mm-hmm.
husband, and you're just watching the movie, you're enjoying the movie, right? But I don't know, maybe it's a Ryan Gosling movie. Maybe it's The Notebook. I don't know. That one
Sure,
does it for
sure.
me. Right. And then all of a sudden, now you're starting to feel aroused. And now you're looking at your husband. And before you weren't really, but you're like, honey, let's go on upstairs. Right. So that's, you need a stimuli. You need to feel that arousal first. Um, and arousal can take 20 to 40 minutes for
Mm-hmm.
most women. I think that's the other thing, is there's just this idea that for most men, they get
Mm-hmm.
aroused like that, right? I say
Mm-hmm.
men are like microwave, women are like ovens. We have to preheat. And that preheat is 20 to 40 minutes, and that gets longer and longer as we get older. And so it's allowing yourself the time to receive that
Mm-hmm.
amount of, I call it core play, not foreplay. And allowing your body to reach full arousal.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times, and 20 to 40 minutes, if you're laying in bed, it can feel like a
Yeah.
very, very long time. And I think that's why a lot of people just kind of, it's not going to happen for me tonight. It probably would have. You just didn't give your body the time.
Okay. So when you're aging and growing and in a long-term marriage, which is what you were talking about, you've got hormones at play and different things. So is it even applicable to try and recreate what you were or how you were in your mid 20s, early 30s?
That's such a great question. So, actually, there have been all kinds of, like, and I am not a neuroscientist, but all of that stuff is out there. There is a particular brain chemistry that happens when we fall in love that is never replicated again in that same relationship.
Mm,
So that falling in love brain chemistry, that only happens in that, whatever, 2 or 3 month time frame. And that's
yeah.
like, at, again, I'm not a neuroscientist. So can we recreate that particular feeling? No.
Hmm.
But there is a different set of brain chemistry that settles in a long-term loving relationship.
Mhm.
Um, so can we capture that specifically? No. But
Yeah.
what we can do, and certainly I'm sure what a lot of people have heard, is being able to, it's bringing in that spice, bringing in that novelty, trying different things. That is what is sort of bringing in excitement and change, because most couples fall, I don't say fall into, most people follow what we call a sexual script. um, every couple has a few of them, so it's like, okay, I'm going to kiss you on the neck. Okay, now I'm
Right.
going to kiss you
Yeah.
here. Now I'm going to touch this.
Yeah.
You're going to touch this. We're going to do this. We have our two favorite positions. We're done. We're going to go to bed.
Yeah.
Right.
If you were a recipe writer, you're following your recipe. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wait,
Perfect
this has
analogy.
always worked.
Yeah. And right. And you have your favorite, like, okay, like I
Yeah.
have my regular recipes that I do,
Yeah.
every week, pretty
Yeah.
much. But every once in a while, I pull out a new recipe.
Yeah. Like, oh,
And
let's add a little bit more garlic to this today. Yeah.
absolutely. And sometimes it works. Everyone's like, oh my gosh, mom, that was a hit. Make that again. And
Yeah.
sometimes it's like, no,
It's
no, no,
like,
no, we don't
yeah,
want to do
womp
that again. Womp womp.
womp.
But that's very much like sex. It's very much the same thing. And trying these new things, and it can be something as simple as bringing a toy into the bedroom, or trying a new lubricant, or just putting on a different pair of panties, but making those little changes, that's the way to, again, sort of spike the brain back into
Yeah.
those into those higher states.
Yeah. So it's interesting. And I like that you were talking about the brain chemistry of falling in love. So I've been married close to 25 years. So and we're very similar in age. If you asked me like Steph when she got married 25 years ago, did she love Adam more or less than she does now? I'm absolutely more in love now, but I didn't know that at the time. We just have so much shared history and so many ups and downs and all arounds. Um, like it's just such a deeper connection.
Yeah.
And so that's neat. That's
Mm-hmm.
neat. And so if you're listening to this and that's not you, and you're not feeling connected in that way, and you aren't in maybe a super healthy long-term relationship or marriage, is doing any of this stuff the right fix, or like do you go to actual marital counseling?
Well, I am a huge fan of therapy across the board for anyone at all times.
Okay.
Even when things are going great,
Yeah.
but I think that, communication is is the basis for a good relationship, period, right? And and a lot of times when I do have couples that come to me, really one of the first things that I have to do is sort out, is this a sex and intimacy issue, or is
Mm,
this a relationship issue? And I am not a therapist. I do like to clarify that. I'm a sex
yeah.
and intimacy coach and clinical sexologist. So if it's a relationship issue, then I'm going to say, let's go work with a therapist. Um, and a lot of times, sex falling off the table is either one of the first, or sometimes it's the last thing. Sometimes sex is the only thing that are keeping a couple together occasionally,
Mm,
but sometimes when resentment, anger, all of that stuff is growing, I mean, yes, if you're angry with this person, unless you're in angry sex, which some people are, but if you're, then you're like, no, don't touch me,
yeah.
and so that can be an indicator of a relationship
Yeah.
issue. And yes, I always say go, and if your partner won't go with you, and sometimes
Yeah.
partners are resistant to that, then go on your own,
Yeah.
because there's certainly, obviously we can't control another person's actions, but we can change the way that we we can control the way that we react and interact, and that may again change the way that they behave, or it may not, and
It
then at
may
that
not.
point you've got other
Yeah.
decisions to make.
Yeah. I'm glad we brought that up because when I work with women and they have the, well, I'll be happy when, and then the when is when their husband acts this way or does this way or starts listening or starts thing, and
Yeah.
there's always more there. And so I just want to make sure that if you're listening to this and your idea is that your partner isn't listening to you, or you're feeling like this isn't a match, I don't want you to think that putting on a different pair of underwear is going to fix that, because it's not.
Yes. Absolutely. No, I could not agree more. So I think again, there's sex and intimacy based issues, there's relationship based issues, and and I think one thing that I've observed, and I suspect you have too, is most women are kind of on this lifelong journey of growth and development and change. I feel like we're constantly I think we all have a little Madonna inside us. We're constantly reinventing ourselves, you know.
Yeah.
And it seems to me that men get more, most men seem to just sort of get a little more static and stay in their patterns. And I don't have a solution for that. But I think that again, it's communication. Everything's communication.
Yeah.
Communicate.
Yeah.
um and communicating about the relationship, communicating about, hey honey, it's been a month and I love you
Yeah.
and I miss you. Like, let's talk about what's going on. Because you know what? On the flip side, men experience a lot of pressure as well.
Yeah.
And they internalize that and they don't talk about it either. They feel pressure to perform. There's an expectation that men are ready at all times, like instantaneously. And that
Yeah.
is also not always the case. And certainly as they get older, the vast majority of men experience some form of erectile dysfunction. And that is
Yeah.
a huge hit to their
Yeah.
egos. And they don't know how to
I'm
talk about it or
yeah.
deal with it.
Well, and it's interesting because you were talking about the microwave versus the preheating the oven. At a
Yep.
certain age, like that changes, and that's okay. And
Yep.
there's nothing wrong with anything.
Yeah. And,
Yeah.
and in that, for anyone who is with again, once we get, late 40s, 50s, 60s, it just takes men longer to get aroused. They need more direct stimulation. And they may not know how to ask for that. They may be embarrassed about it. They don't understand why their bodies aren't functioning the way that they've always functioned. And this is another thing I like to say. I was like, we are capable of experiencing very satisfying, pleasurable sex lives as long as we want to. And that means into 70s and 80s and even 90s. If you want, it is going to look
Yeah.
different than it did when we were younger, but it can still be very pleasurable and satisfying. But it just is going to require doing things differently.
A little bit differently. Well, and I like that you had talked about the planning ahead and the anticipation. So on that note, do you recommend people schedule, like put it on the calendar kind of thing?
Yes,
Send a calendar invite.
yes, no, I mean, yes, absolutely. That is actually, if you go onto my website, you can download my 5 tips for sexy scheduled sex. That
Okay.
is, especially for the busy family, the most important thing that you can do is schedule sex. And yes, put it on the calendar. It is on my calendar. um, and find that time. Like, look, 9 o'clock at night is probably not a good time for anyone because you're both exhausted. So,
Yeah.
especially in this post COVID world where most people are working from home at least part of the time, have a little lunchtime rendezvous, find a little bit of time and put it on the calendar. Because the other thing is, if it is scheduled every Wednesday afternoon, then if one partner initiates it another day of the week and the other one's really tired, that is not going to feel like a rejection because you're like, you know what, honey, I'm really looking forward to Wednesday. And then that's when the positive anticipation, that's when the flirtation can start. Tuesday, hey, honey, looking forward to tomorrow. I got a new
Yeah.
toy, or do you wear that pair of socks that I like? Or, there are so many flirty memes that you can send
Okay.
back and forth. I love flirting over meme. Um, and it's helping to create an erotic mindset. It's helping to and it's that flirtation. Like, sex shouldn't start right when you hop in bed. Like, sex should start, if it's at night, sex should start in the morning when the sun comes up, like the flirtation. Because especially women, but men too,
Yeah.
we need that mental stimulation, that flirtation, that fun. People forget that sex is, it's supposed to be fun, it's supposed to be
Yeah.
enjoyable. People lose sight of that.
Hey there. Are you looking for an easier way to meet your goals without sacrificing your ethics or morals? If so, you're going to want to check out the new masterclass I recorded on how to achieve more by learning how to slow down. I know it sounds like an oxymoron, but I promise you that this is a proven system that works. If you are ready to finally meet your personal and professional goals without sacrificing yourself or your sanity, check out this new recording at stephanieoday.com/masterclass. Okay, back to this week's episode. So we had joked earlier that when you and I were on stage, we were talking about not being so prude. So if right now you have always followed this same formula and this same recipe and it's always worked, but now it's not, and you do want to explore Amy's website, which you most def should, and we'll drop a link, but the storefront is Suburban Intimacy Shop, all one word.com. And I mean, you have anything you could possibly think of, including like a subscription box that would arrive with different things that you can test out. So how do you, so I know we had already talked about communication being key, but if you're feeling uncomfortable and you want to bring this stuff into your house, what is the best way to do it so all of a sudden it doesn't look like you had a lobotomy and you're a brand new person? Like, who are you? What is mom doing here?
Well, it's actually I'm glad that you brought up my subscription boxes, because I think that is a very low pressure way of bringing something interesting in, because it's not, hey honey, I went and bought this and I want to try it. It's, hey honey, I got this box. I don't even know what's in it. It's a surprise for both of us.
It is a surprise. Yeah.
And so now it's not necessarily like, because and this happens very frequently, one person wants to bring a toy into the bedroom and the other partner is like, wait, am I not enough?
Right. Well, and also you start going down this like rabbit hole, like what are they watching online and who and what is going on here? And this is weird and I'm uncomfortable. And it's like red flag, red flag, red flag.
Yeah. I always suggest leading with an attitude of curiosity, right? I'm curious to try. I'm curious to explore. And curiosity is just that, it's curiosity. And certainly when it comes to toys, a thing that I like to, toys bring, first of all, a toy will never ever ever replace the real thing. Sure, it vibrates, cool, but like there's every other part, the kissing, the touching, the connection, like that is irreplaceable, completely irreplaceable. Now, what a toy can and will do, especially for women, is it adds that layer of vibration. It helps us experience arousal faster. That 20 to 40 minutes can turn into 5 to 10 or maybe even less. And so it's going to help bring all of that blood flow down to the area, which is what we need. Yeah. Because just like men experience an erection, that's blood in there. It is the exact same thing for us. It's all the same parts, just organized differently, as Dr. Nagoski likes to say. Really so yeah, so I'm curious to try this, and you can even start. There's so many different little things. There's a lubricant that I absolutely love. I have it right here. It's called Morgasm. And it is a CBD based lubricant with a little bit of tingle and L-arginine. L-arginine increases blood flow. And this stuff is magical, you guys. Like completely magical. They sent me a sample of it, and yeah, it's magical. That's just what I'm going to say about that.
Okay, is that in your storefront?
If people it is in my store. Okay. It is called Morgasm. So yeah, Morgasm. Definitely.
And then you have a coupon code for us. Is that right?
Yes. So Steph10 will give you 10% off anything in my store, and that'll be good through the end of June. So June 30th. So go ahead and shop. And if you follow me on social media, if you have questions about anything, I've been selling intimacy products for 14 years. So I am more than happy to help give recommendations. If you're looking through my store and you're like, I don't even know where to start, shoot me a
Yeah.
message, send me an email, and I'm more than happy to help you out.
And if you're older or younger, do you have recommendations like, okay, like this will probably help more if I'm in my late 40s, early 50s versus 20s, 30s?
Um, I mean, I would certainly say as we're in with perimenopause, postmenopausal, a good lubricant is essential. And all lubricants, first of all, are not created equal. And second of all, a lot of people think they can buy one lube and it's good for everything. And they find, oh, this is sticky, this isn't working. And so if you've purchased a lube in the past and you were not happy with it, you probably had the wrong lube for what activity you're participating in. There's water based, there's silicone based, there's hybrid, there's lots of different types. So, but I think a bottle lubricant, in my opinion, is essential. However, I'm going to put a little caveat on that. People also think that um, if they put some lubricant in, then okay, cool, we're good to go. We can start with penetration. Just because a vagina is wet, just because a vagina is lubricated on its own or with lubricant, still does not mean it's aroused and ready. So
Mm,
don't use that as a tool to speed up and skip the arousal process, which is still very important. What it is designed to do is make things more comfortable and protect the vaginal tissue, which is important because if you aren't prepared, you can get these little micro tears in the vaginal tissue. And if that continues happening over and over, you can start to get a buildup of scar tissue. And scar tissue has no nerve endings. And so if that continues to happen
interesting.
a lot of times, then you know what, that's you're going to start to experience decreased sensation. And that's sometimes what we see with older women.
Okay. So with like atrophy and different things like that, do you recommend like hormone replacement therapy or just first stop talk to your OB?
Um, I so again, I'm not a doctor, so I'll
Right.
clarify that. So I will always say go talk to your doctor first. Um, from my experience from the conversations that I've had with my clients, all I have heard is good things about hormone replacement therapy. So, but I'm not a doctor, so I would
Yeah.
certainly say default to your doctor there. I will say one interesting fact that I did learn, which I thought was so I had stage 0 breast cancer 7 years ago, so I'm a breast cancer survivor. Mine was not hormone linked. But I was under the impression that if you had a estrogen or progesterone positive based cancer, that you cannot use any hormone based products.
Yeah.
But I learned from a few other professionals that I interviewed in my last summit that
Yeah.
topical estrogen can be used. It does not go into the blood. Now, same thing, talk to your
Yeah.
doctor. Um, but so topical estrogen and things like that, I think can be very useful, especially in cases of vaginal atrophy.
Yeah. And I'm learning just from myself and my friends and then some of my coaching clients, um, stuff changes. And so if you were told something 3 or 5 years ago, uh, there's new research constantly happening and new products on the market. And so ask. And I like your term of being curious. Because I am a curious person and I like to fact check things. If I hear something and it doesn't feel right or doesn't sit right, I Google the hell out of it. Don't say bad words, but I do. I try to do my own research and then bring that body of knowledge to my doctor and then talk to her and talk about what I've already learned on my own. Um, and doctors aren't God. They're humans. They make mistakes. And I know you're the daughter of a doctor who what you may have learned in school or it's changing. It's constantly evolving. And so continue with the curiosity and don't think, well, a doctor told me 12 years ago, I'm not a candidate for this because you might be now.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I couldn't agree. People do think doctors are God. Doctors are human. Doctors are basically detectives.
Mm,
Like you are giving them a series. This is what I'm experiencing. These are my symptoms. This is XYZ. They go run blood work. They look at all these different things. And then they have to take all of that, run it through their filter of what they know and come out with something. I mean, that's really what they do. And so finding a doctor that you know that you trust is so important. And if you don't feel like your doctor is paying attention or really listening to you, then go find another
yeah, go
one,
find another one.
you know? So, that's so important. And, and then the other thing that I'll say, which is funny, this just sparked something, but when you said, what you learned 3 to 5 years ago may be different. So that same thing with sex and intimacy, right? There may be something that
Mm,
maybe you tried um 3 to 5 years ago and it wasn't, you know, it didn't really
yeah,
work, wasn't necessarily your favorite. It's always worth revisiting
yeah,
periodically,
yeah.
because to your point, things change, bodies change, interests change.
Hmm.
And so trying something again, maybe with you've got some additional experience, you've got some better connection, you've got some better communication skills going on with your partner.
Hmm.
Oh well, let's try to revisit that. Is always fun because again, it's finding those new ways, spicing things up, scheduling,
Yeah,
scheduling that sex, seeing if you can get away,
yeah,
even just for a night, even for a few hours, send the
I
kids
know.
over to a neighbor's house for a little bit, let them have a play date. Like create your village. They send them to your house for a few hours, you send them to their house for a few hours, and then you guys have a chance to have some fun.
I like that. I like that. Before we log off, I wanted to bring up you had mentioned with the Morgasm lube, CBD. So I wanted to talk about CBD, THC, alcohol, because for some people that's part of their quote unquote recipe. And then maybe they no longer do that, or maybe they feel shame or stigma that, oh, it only works if I have 3 glasses of rosé, or something like that. So can you speak a little bit to that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that um obviously getting into that, there's so much to explore there, but you know, so speaking about alcohol specifically, alcohol lowers inhibitions. Um, and for a lot of people, that is something that it helps their brain relax. It helps them. And so they feel like that is something, that is helpful. And I'm not here to shame anybody for that at all. I think if that is something that has become required, you know, looking into what is the reason behind that. Um, and if you're dealing, if you've been somebody who's experienced some sort of trauma, sexual trauma, things like that, these become adaptive behaviors. These are survival strategies that people use. And again, working with a really good therapist. Actually, I have a wonderful one in my summit, which I'll talk about in a little bit. But um, and looking into that, and actually, and I'll say full disclosure, like I used to be someone who that was something that I really needed, was I needed a few glasses of wine. And and then I started looking at my habits and I was like, this has changed from a glass of wine to relax to several glasses of wine most nights of the week. And um and I didn't like that about myself,
Mm,
and I didn't like that. I didn't like that that was something that was just sort of becoming a thing. I didn't like the example I was setting for my children.
yeah.
Um and and then when I stopped, I was honestly pretty afraid. I was like, well, am I going to be in my head? But what I discovered was you feel so much more. um and and it also really made me start to have to consciously work on my own thought patterns, my own um just the way that I thought about things, and rather than using a substance to overcome certain things, I had to look at some stuff within myself, and I did that work, and frankly, you feel a lot more because it drops your inhibitions, but it also numbs a lot of other
And it's
things.
a lot of
So
numbing. I'm so
yeah.
proud of you, Amy. That's great.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and the mommy one, and look,
No,
I'm
it's
not
it's
shaming
a real
anyone.
thing. No, so
Yeah.
we'll put a link in the show notes. I did an episode on sober curious, and that's why
Mhm.
I think you and I connected so much over the word curious. Just explore, poke, um,
Yeah.
and realize, as Amy spoke to, we're constantly evolving, we're constantly changing, and if we're lucky, life is long, and have
Mhm.
fun with it, and play around with it, and yes, maybe you do need to mourn your 27-year-old self and body, and come to terms with, so probably not all of those parts are going to look the same, but that's okay, and I can still have a very happy, healthy, active life in all areas, and it doesn't need to be put on the shelf.
Yeah, absolutely. And and I think the other thing too is and I didn't even touch on this, but it's really important for us, we are responsible for our own pleasure and orgasms. And I think a lot of times we depend on a partner for that. I know I certainly did for many, many years. So, if this is, if you're listening to this topic and this entire episode has made you uncomfortable, but you're still listening, first of all, like let me commend you for that. And then a piece of advice that I would offer is really taking some time to explore yourself, explore your own body as it is now.
Yeah.
Because yes, it is different in our 20s. Learn how you experience pleasure, get comfortable with yourself, and make it, and like date yourself, make love to yourself, like put on some nice music, put on something that makes you feel beautiful and sexy for you, and just really allow yourself the time to just appreciate and look at your body. Scars, stretch marks, extra 20 pounds that you really criticize yourself for, but like just
Yeah.
look at yourself with gentleness and appreciate who you are and where you are now. Because that's the basis of building that body confidence.
Yeah. No, it's interesting. I talk to sometimes some of my coaching clients. Um, Sometimes many of them are empty nesters, and so they're alone for the first time in the house, and they don't know what to do with themselves. And so I
Mhm.
joke, well, now you can walk around naked all the time. But really do that. And it sounds silly, but if you're home alone, and obviously cover the windows so you don't flash the UPS guy accidentally, but become one with who you are, and maybe do a 20-minute yoga video naked, and see how things move and work, and if you're comfortable, sit in front of a floor length mirror naked, and make eye contact, and tell yourself that you are amazing, and you are wonderful, and you are lovely, and you are enough. Like, who you are right now is enough, and you don't need to look like the plastic people on TV or on Instagram. Um, there's nothing wrong with you. Um, and we're proud of you. I'm proud of you. Amy's proud of you. And
Yeah.
okay, talk to me about your summit, because I do know you have a coupon code for that too. And I want to make sure we put all those links in the show notes.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's actually the summit itself will be over by the time this airs, but I do have a way for all of you guys to access it. So I'm running my second sexual virtual empowerment summit. I've interviewed 30 different sex therapists, doctors, best-selling authors, sex coach. I mean, all sexuality professionals from all across the spectrum about everything from tantra, about um, desire, about sexual trauma, about sacred sexuality, about cosmic orgasms, about oh
Mm,
my god, like literally anything you can imagine. I guarantee that there's an interview or several that touch on that. So if anything that I've talked about here has sparked some curiosity, if you want to learn more, if you want to expand your sexual horizons, whether this is something very new and you're very shy about it, or whether you're like, oh, our sex life is pretty good, but like, what else is out there? Like,
yeah.
there's something for you in this summit. So, if you'd like to go ahead and explore it, if you go to the suburbansexologist.com, and there's a VIP pass. Post summit, normally it's $97. I'm offering all of you guys 50% off. So you can use the code STEPH50 and you'll get 50% off that VIP pass. You will have access to all of those interviews. You can watch them on your own time. You will also have access to 28 additional interviews from my last summit, a Better Sex Tonight workbook, and a $10 gift card to my Suburban Intimacy shop to use on top of your coupon.
Amy,
So
that's so generous. Thank you. That's
you're
wonderful.
welcome.
So my favorite part about talking to you and why we connected so much in real life and why I wanted you on is you're real and not like phony bumper sticker, like kind of clickbait, like 5 things you need to do tonight. And if you're not doing it, you're doing it wrong. Because in real life, there's so many different nuances and parts. And none of you are doing anything wrong in any way. And I get it. I understand clickbait and I write online, so I get it. But just you're such a breath of fresh air in that you're real and you're not I don't know, just kind of falling for marketing hype and hustle. So I really appreciate that.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate that. I love my passion with this has always just been teaching and educating and helping people experience all the pleasure that our bodies are capable of. We were built for that. We were built for pleasure and to experience that. And I just want people to be able to tap into that and to overcome the guilt and the shame and the blocks and, all of the things that get in the way. Because, certainly what I found in my relationship is when we and we've gone through our own journey as well, but when you're connecting really well sexually, when you're able to communicate about all of those things, about these very vulnerable things, and you're connecting very well, then that extends out into the rest of your relationship too. It makes the day in and day out stuff easier. If you can talk about sex and intimacy, then when you have to have that difficult conversation about money or where to send the kids to school or whatever, you approach it in a different way, and it just really improves your relationship, and your relationship with yourself too, because it also just makes you feel more comfortable, more confident, and that exudes out into other areas of your life too. So I just want to help people experience that.
I think it's great. Oh, wonderful. Okay, check out Amy. She is a real person. So if you message her and you have questions like, I want to buy this, but I'm worried, I don't know if this is, I mean, we were talking about silicone versus water lube. And if you have questions about that, ask her because she really will answer you back and she's not a bot.
Absolutely. Yes, completely. No, I will answer you personally. So please reach out. I would be happy, whether you've got questions about sex and intimacy, if you're interested in learning about my coaching or any workshops or courses that I have available. My website is suburbanintimacy.com. The summit is the suburbansexologist.com. And my shop is suburbanintimacyshop.com. You can also link to my shop and the summit through Suburban Intimacy. So I know there's a few different things going on there, but please go ahead and, follow me on Facebook, Instagram. I'm on all of the different places, Amy Rowan Intimacy Coach. And yeah, reach out with any questions. I am here to help. That's just what I do.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay, Slow Down Society. Thank you so much for being here. As always, I think you're amazing and wonderful and lovely. I'm so proud of you. And I will see you again next week. Do you have a slow living story to share? Leave me a voicemail at stephanieodea.com/podcast with any questions, comments, feedback, or testimonials, and I will be sure to include it in an upcoming episode. Also, if you found value in this episode, please share it with your family and friends and subscribe through your favorite podcast provider. The more you share, comment, and leave positive reviews, the more people we can reach and share the slow living lifestyle and messaging. Thank you, Slow Down Society, and have an absolutely wonderful day.